Welcome back. The Australian Prime Minister has just arrived at the White House. He will be holding meetings with President Biden and security leaders. You can see President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden right there. They will also have an official state dinner later this evening. Weijia Jiang is following this for us from the White House. Weijia, good morning. Tell us a little bit about the reception that the Prime Minister will be getting at the White House.
Good morning to both of you, and good morning to everybody. You can see some of the crowd here, some almost 4,000 people. That includes staffers from the embassy, from the White House, friends and family that are here to greet the Prime Minister as he makes his way for his official visit here at the White House, meeting with President Biden. And so this is a very warm reception, as is any with a formal state visit. And this is only the fourth time that President Biden has had an official state visit. So it really speaks to the importance of the relationship and the way in which he views Australia as a critical ally. So it is a jam-packed day, as you briefly mentioned, but these two leaders will have a host of meetings today before hosting a joint press conference later this afternoon. Of course, we will have full coverage of that as well.
So some people may wonder about the timing for something like this. All eyes have been focused on the Israel-Hamas conflict. The president was there. We can see the Secretary of State there. So there's a number of people who are in the crowd right now whose primary focus for the past couple of weeks has been what's happening in the Middle East. So Can you talk a little bit about why now for the state dinner?
Well, these state dinners are planned well in advance, and it would not be in the interest of the White House to change the schedule for anybody because of the details that go into this and the fact that two delegations have to coordinate. Not to mention the fact that the White House says this is the time to have this meeting because it's not only about what's happening in the Middle East, but this really speaks to the America's positioning in the entire world, especially as we look to would-be aggressors, namely China. And of course, Australia is a key ally in building up security in the Indo-Pacific region. And so the White House says, look, the president has been focused on the conflict in Israel and Gaza, but he also has to focus on his other work and look to the future and make sure that these relationships are more than stable, but very strong. In fact, these two will be talking about several security issues, including the United States supplying submarines to Australia, including building infrastructure under the water in terms of new technology and cable. So there's a lot at stake here, and that is why, even though the war is unfolding, this was still a very important visit.
Yeah, they're just about to play the national anthem, so we're going to dip into this. All right. We expect to hear from the Prime Minister shortly, but Weijia Jiang has been sort of standing by for us, guiding us through this special state visit of the Australian Prime Minister. And Weijia, you had been talking earlier about how Australia is a member of what they call the Quad, which is a four-nation, for lack of an organization isn't the right word, but I guess coalition that includes America, Australia, India, and Japan, focused on limiting the influence and threats that may be coming from Beijing. Can you talk a little bit more about what the Quad has been working on?
You're absolutely right. That's exactly it. They have a shared interest in curbing any of Beijing's aggression, and so they have been working closely together. In fact, they were supposed to be meeting over the summer after the G7 summit, which the president attended. They were supposed to go to Australia and have a Quad summit, but that didn't happen because President Biden had to rush back here to Washington to deal with the debt ceiling and a looming government shutdown. And so in a way, this is a consolation prize for the Prime Minister, a very big one, because again, they do have so much to talk about, and with regard to how they can build up security in some of the ways that I spoke about in terms of, maritime infrastructure and making sure underwater, above water, that they are positioned in the case that something were to unfold. And the president has really stressed this relationship along with that of India. In fact, like I mentioned, he's only had 4 state dinners, and one of those went to India as well. The other, South Korea, which is another key ally in the region. So you cannot underscore enough the way that President Biden views China and competition. And he has often said that, it would be misfortune for that competition to turn into conflict. So they are making sure that it is a stable relationship with Beijing. In fact, the Prime Minister of Australia plans to go there in the coming months. The first time an Australian Prime Minister will do that in about 7 years. So again, this really showcases the way in which these countries view China as a looming threat. And so it is important that they have this time together, especially because they weren't able to do it after the G7 summit.
You had mentioned earlier that even though the state dinner was planned for now, there is an awareness that much of the world's attention is focused on what is happening between Israel and Hamas. The images of innocent civilians on both sides under attack, under siege, the humanitarian crisis that is growing there. And quite frankly, you wouldn't want a split screen showing a bunch of dignitaries celebrating while so much misery is happening between Israel and Hamas. Can you talk about some of the changes that have been, tweaks that have been made to this event to take that into account?
Well, certainly what the public sees is this. It's very grand. It is pomp and circumstance. We're talking about a lavish state dinner where, all eyes are on what the first ladies are going to be wearing. But behind the scenes, Anne-Marie, this is really critical work that the two leaders will be doing, and it is showing a sign of respect for the relationship between the U.S. and Australia, and that is why the visit is going on as planned for the most part. But to your point, there are small tweaks that the First Lady's office has been mindful of. For example, the B-52s, Love Shack, were supposed to perform during the state dinner, but instead of that, it will be military bands. And so that is one outward way that the public will see that, they are treating the time and where we are in the world with respect while still coming together to have this critical FaceTime with the Australian delegation.
And you really see the respect that is paid when there, as you mentioned, Weijia, have only been 4 state dinners. One thing that I thought was of note for this particular state dinner is that on a side note, the culinary team, they're saying, is made up entirely of women. So there's a message, it seems, that the White House is also trying to send there.
Yes, absolutely. This administration takes great pride in being the most diverse administration, they would argue, ever. And so to be able to celebrate these chefs in that way and pay homage to, sort of the middle ground between Australian and American cultures and cuisines was really important. And, these delicate details are planned out by the First Lady and her team. And so it is a way for her to also show her priorities. And of course, she is a very beloved First Lady who often celebrates women and women working. So it does make sense that, these chefs are all women.
A lavish dinner had planned. And Weijia, you were talking before about among the issues that will be discussed here are the nuclear-powered attack submarines. But tech partnerships will also be a major topic of conversation between these two leaders.
I'm sorry, Nancy, you cut out for 1 second.
The tech partnerships, technology innovations will also be a major point of discussion during their meetings.
Absolutely, because technology continues to evolve. And when you think about what is needed for any kind of defense strategy, you have to incorporate technology. And so when we're talking about building cables in the ocean and building, communications not only above ground but underground, it really takes a lot of coordination. And that is why a big portion of these meetings will be dedicated to talking about different ways that they can expand upon that. But I think it also showcases the fact that, this is not only about the Indo-Pacific region. We surely expect both leaders here to talk about the conflict in Israel. And in fact, on that note, President Biden is about to begin remarks.
Distinguished guest and all of Australia out in the lawn. Welcome. Welcome and good morning, or as you would say, good day. It's an honor to welcome you all to the White House as we celebrate the enduring alliance between Australia and the United States. An alliance that's marked by imagination, ingenuity, and innovation. Nearly 55 years ago, American astronauts took humanity's first step on the moon. They sent a message forever etched in history. Quote, "That's one small step for man and one giant step for mankind." But the only reason anyone down on Earth saw this feat or heard those immortal words was thanks to a team of Australian engineers. As dawn broke at NASA Station, just outside of Canberra, they aimed a radio telescope toward the heavens, captured a lone voice among all the stars, and shared it with millions of people watching breathlessly all around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Prime Minister, today, Australia and the United States continue to stand together, continue to innovate, to push back the bounds that had been in our way, and make a giant step toward what could be, to race undaunted toward a future we know is possible if we work together. Because time and time again, we've seen what America and Australia can do when we stand as one. We saw it during World War I, when our troops helped turn the tide of war on the Western Front. We saw it during World War II, when we fought the forces of fascism side by side in the Pacific, cementing a mateship between our people. And we saw it again during the war against terror, when Australia invoked the AUKUS Treaty for the first time to stand with the United States after we were attacked on 9/11. And we'll never forget those brave Australians and Americans who, generation after generation, gave their lives to give us a better world. We'll never forget our obligation to them to keep upholding the democratic values for which they gave their lives, to keep forging a better future for generations to come. Together, Australia and America are meeting that obligation. As two proud Pacific nations, we're ensuring the Indo-Pacific remains free, open, and prosperous and secure, including through our historic AUKUS partnership with the United Kingdom. We're building stronger economies where no one fears coercion and everyone, as you say down under, gets a fair go. Together, we're standing with Israel against Hamas terrorism. We're standing with Ukraine against Putin's tyranny. And we're providing and proving that democracy can deliver on the challenges that matter most to people's lives, from climate change to cancer. And today, we're fueling the spark of innovation that has long burned in the hearts of Aussies and Americans. Innovation that will help uplift people in the Indo-Pacific and all around the world. Innovation that took us to the moon will take us further in the years ahead. Mr. Prime Minister, the alliance between Australia and the United States has never been more important than it is today. And we have never been more committed than we are today. Australia and America stand ready to do the hard work, the historic work, to tackle the challenges we face. Ready to take a giant leap together toward a better future. One of greater opportunity, dignity, security, and liberty. For Americans, for Australians, for all. May God bless our alliance, and may God protect our troops. And now it's my great honor to introduce Prime Minister Albanese, and I'm honored to invite you to say a few words. Thank you.
President Biden, First Lady Dr. Biden, firstly, thank you for the great honour of this invitation and the wonderful warmth of your welcome, including the wonderful dinner we had in the White House last night. Mr. President, when you and I stood together in San Diego in March, the USS Sterett and the USS Missouri behind us, we were surrounded by the examples of America's power. To stand with you here in Washington, D.C. is to witness the power of America's example, the ideas and ideals that your great democracy was built on, the self-evident truths that every American generation strives to give deeper meaning, and the peace and freedom that America seeks to defend around the globe. The principle that every country, large and small, should be able to seek to shape its own destiny and secure its own future, where the sovereignty of every nation is respected and the dignity and liberty of every individual is recognised, where peace is secured not by fear of force or strength of arms alone, but through the collective commitment and the shared responsibility of the international community. This is at the heart of our alliance, the soul of our partnership, not a pact against a common enemy, a pledge to a common cause, a shared belief that freedom, peace and equality are not just American ideals or Australian values, they belong to all humankind. That is why Ukrainian soldiers are driving Australian-made Bushmasters as they drive back an illegal and immoral invasion. And it is why all Australians condemn the atrocities, terror and pitiless brutality of Hamas. And Mr. President, we applaud the personal resolve you have brought to this troubled part of the world. You have spoken with moral clarity and you have stood up for a simple principle, the principle that every innocent life matters, Israeli and Palestinian, and that in every conflict, every effort must be made to protect civilians. American leadership is indispensable, but it is not inevitable. It takes a leader to deliver it. It takes wisdom to show empathy, courage to provide humanitarian assistance, and true leadership to seek peace. Because protecting innocent people is not a show of weakness, it is a measure of strength. Mr. President, our nation's steadfast alliance has grown and thrived through 15 of my predecessors and 13 of yours. In Australian public life, it meets the #1 measure of a great idea. Both political parties try and claim credit for it. But it is not, and it has never been, the leaders at this podium who determine the strength and success of our alliance. It is the people we serve. Presidents and Prime Ministers can praise our country's shared values. We can sign agreements to advance our common interests. But it is our citizens who make the words a bond. It is our people whose courage and ambition, hard work and aspiration give life and weight to all we share and all we strive for. Sometimes we casually refer to average Americans or everyday Australians, but what they do every day is anything but average. It is our people making the breakthroughs that are seeing Australia and the United States cooperate in new technology like never before. From quantum computing and medical science to agriculture and defence, it's our people driving unprecedented collaboration in our creative industries, in art and film and music, from Barbie to Bluey. It is our people partnering to unlock the possibilities of clean energy and critical minerals. The third pillar, the new pillar of our alliance, a plan for both our nations to seize the transformative economic opportunities of clean energy, and a plan to help every nation meet the global challenge of climate change. It is our people who will train together, side by side, to service the next generation of our submarines and defence technology. And it is our people that we honour when we remember the generations of Australians and Americans who have fought and fallen together. Our veterans and all those who have given the cause of peace their last full measure of devotion. And Mr. President, in reflecting on this century of service, I'm reminded of a sentiment that you have shared before from an American soldier talking about his time in Iraq. And that sentiment was this: you know, when there's an Australian with you, they'll always have your back. A generous thought from a man of courage and character, Major Beau Biden. Mr. President, you have known far more than life's ordinary share of loss and grief. And you have been called to serve at a time when sadness and strife have cast a long shadow on our world. You understand that the task for all of us is to draw on the strength that hope instills, to look to the future, not just with optimism for better days, but with the determination to build a better world. And while we do indeed face testing times, our friendship is tried and tested. Our people are up for the challenge. Our alliance has been shaped by history and it is ready to shape the future. So, with optimism and with determination, let us pledge to make this a time when hope and history rhyme. Let us write the next chapter in our alliance together. I thank you, Mr. President.
Very generous. And besides, you got to vote on it. Besides, stand and see anybody.
All right, so there we've heard from the Prime Minister of Australia. He's here for a formal state dinner, and they're going to be leaving that podium right now and entering into some serious talks about a range of issues. Weijia Jiang has been standing by, sort of guiding us through the importance of this state dinner. And then where are we going to see these two leaders? When are we going to see them next?
Well, after they have meetings all morning, there is a joint press conference scheduled for 12:30 in the White House Rose Garden, and that is when they will each take questions both from the American press as well as the Australian press corps that is traveling here with the Prime Minister. And you have to imagine that some of those questions will be about the conflict that we are seeing in Israel and Gaza, which both leaders talked about during their opening remarks here during the formal arrival. And so I found that this was an incredibly moving speech, especially by the Prime Minister, as they both reflected on the longstanding relationship between the U.S. and Australia. But the Prime Minister made it very personal. He did quote from the president's late son, Beau Biden, who of course served in the military, as someone saying that, you know, if you know that an Australian is with you, that he will have your back. So I thought that, you know, everything that the Prime Minister said really went back to what we talked about earlier, which is just this mutual respect and mutual necessity for these two countries to work together to strengthen the security in a region that impacts both of them and both of their countries. And that's certainly also what President Biden talked about too, with regard to, you know, all the different things that they're working on together. But I have to also mention that the Prime Minister talked about American leadership, and he said that even though it was indispensable, it was also not inevitable. And I think one thing we should mention is that even if he wanted to go to Congress and lobby for certain pieces of legislation that Australia is interested in, what he would see right now is a dysfunctional Congress, because of course none of those bills could move ahead or even be introduced without a Speaker of the House. And so that timing is quite unfortunate for the Prime Minister, who is here, who would typically be making pleas to lawmakers about legislation, and he can do that, but you know, it's sort of on empty ears right now because there is no leader to help move that process along.
Yeah,
Nancy and Anne-Marie?
Weijia, that's a really, really good reminder. Thank you very much.